You look like you are the human version of period cramps.
You look like a before picture.
You look like you're a gray sprinkle on a rainbow cupcake.
You look like you're afraid of balloons.
Welcome to Exhumed.
Hi, I'm Lisa, and this is my sister Sam.
Hey.
Welcome to Exhumed. Tonight's episode, part 1 of Return Jonathan Meggs Ward. So we grew up in Sylvania and we never really knew this story. All we knew was that there was some killer running around Sylvania. We didn't know it was a serial killer, I don't think, right?
I don't remember.
I think maybe I was told that it was a serial killer because what I was picturing was like a Jack the Ripper type deal. You know, he's just like running around Sylvania killing people. Sylvania was only the last place that he had killed someone. And until his confession, nobody even knew that he was a serial killer. They just knew that he killed his wife. So I looked into that, hoping that I would find the whole story because I wanted to know about the other murders too. And I found it. And now I'm going to tell you. First of all, Return Jonathan Meggs Ward was born June 8th, 1815. He was a Gemini.
Yep, I know. My birthday is June 9th, and there's something about Ohio and serial killers, especially with Geminis. There's roughly 44 serial killers from Ohio, which I think like per capita, Ohio has the most amount of serial killers, but a lot of them are also Geminis. So everyone thinks that I'm going to be a serial killer at some point in time.
So Ward's parents were Jared Ward and Huldah Collins Ward. His mother died when he was only 2 years old. So his father raised him and his siblings on his own. And his father was a pretty successful and respected farmer. What was he? Was he the first settler in Milan?
Mr. Ward was the first settler in Milan, a respectable man in a comfortable circumstances.
And he grew wheat?
Yeah, he grew wheat.
He was the first person to grow wheat in Milan too, wasn't he?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it was wheat.
So usually when you hear about a serial killer, you hear about all kinds of messed up things that happened to them in their childhood. Their parents were terrible to them, abused them in one way or another. But in this case, it doesn't seem to have happened here. And if it did, I could find absolutely no information on it. From what I can tell, Jared was just being a dad, doing what he was supposed to be doing. They started their kids out pretty early back then when it came to occupation and learning trades. His father sent his daughters away for a formal education, and he sent his sons to learn trades. When Ward was about 9 or 10 years old, through community connections, Jared got Return a job as a cabin boy / cook on a Lake Erie schooner called the Dread. Somehow or another, and this is only relevant just because if you're going to get a visual at all in your head while I'm telling this story, this is the only place that this is relevant at all. Somehow Return ended up coming back with a foot injury, which left him with a limp for the rest of his life. You feel sorry for the kid, but as he grew up and what he turned into, that limp just kind of gives more of a creep factor. That's the only reason why I'm bringing it up.
He is a goofy looking guy.
Yeah, he's creepy looking. Especially after you know what he's done, he's very creepy looking.
Mm-hmm.
So he only worked on that ship for about a year. When he was 11 years old, he came back home because the Dread ended up being sold. So his father decided, okay, well, I'm going to ship you out to Columbus to apprentice as a blacksmith for your brother-in-law. Ward didn't really like being a blacksmith, so he ended up coming back home. And he eventually found a job as a tailor. And that's what he did for the rest of his life. So growing up, Return was known and kind of disliked for his foul language, gruff demeanor, violent temper. He got along with people, I guess, but they would always just kind of, okay, let's not piss this guy off.
Steer a little clear from him.
Yeah, like there's kind of something not right about this guy. But I mean, he got along with people fine. The thing is, though, as he was getting older, he tended to move around a lot because he would stay somewhere for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and he'd end up getting in trouble. His dad would come and bail him out, and then he'd just move on to the next place. Get in trouble there, his dad would bail him out. He just kept moving around. He would just kind of create enemies wherever he was. just for being stupid, just for doing dumb shit, and just for being a jerk. I'm going to give you a couple examples of that. So for example, when he was 26 years old, he was living in Milan, Ohio, working as a tailor. And he got into a fight with a man named Adams that he was working with. This story is actually kind of funny and it's pretty immature. So he's working with this guy, Adams, and Adams walks in and he's like, oh my God, it's so hot in here. He's like, we got to open these doors. You have made it so hot in here, I can't work. And Ward's like, you're not opening those doors. They're going to stay shut. If you're too hot in here, you can go outside and work. I don't care. And Adams is like, no, I don't think I'll do that. So he got up and opened up all the doors and sat down. Ward got up and slammed all the doors shut. And he goes, if you open these doors again, I will, quote, knock you to hell.
What?
So Adams is like, well, screw you. He gets up and like deliberately one by one opens up all the doors again. Like, what are you going to do? Ward gets up and grabs an iron, like a clothing iron. But you have to imagine this is in the 1800s. This clothing iron was not like a plastic iron that you plug into a wall. This was a solid iron, clothing iron.
Made to last.
It was heavy. And he went after him with it and hit him in the shoulder twice with it, dislocated his shoulder. So, of course, Adams pressed charges on him.
Naturally.
Yeah. So Ward says, my father said I would set myself into trouble and had to settle the matter. So I sent for Adams and asked him what he would take to settle it. He said $10. I said, I'll see you in hell first. I reached in my pocket and pulled out a $5 bill, put it on the counter, and said, if you take this, I will settle it. He accordingly took it, and I heard no more of the affair. Dude, that's not the way it works, first of all. If you're suing someone and you're like, I want this amount of money, and they're like, no, I'm going to give you half of that, you're going to be like, okay, how about 7? You're going to counter offer. Adams didn't even do that. He was just like, okay.
Okay. You know what? $10, $10 in 1855 ish is roughly $370. So $5, what, like 155?
It was way before 1855.
Oh, really? What year?
It's like 1840.
Okay, so around like $400 for $10.
Okay, and he only gave Adams $200. Adams is just like, okay. I think that kind of tells you how intimidating Ward must have been, where Adams just kind of backed down immediately, like, okay, whatever you say. Later on, he's working in Mansfield, and he has a fight with a man named Cole. He's about 2 years in working in Mansfield. He has a disagreement with Cole over some kind of money and bookkeeping. Cole didn't like the way that Ward was keeping track of the money. Maybe he thought that Ward was kind of skimming off the top a little bit. Who knows? So Ward decided to say, well, you don't like the way I'm handling the money? Okay. So he takes the account books and burns them to ashes. The account books had everything that everyone owed them and all of the amounts.
So he clearly didn't care about the money. He just wanted to prove a point.
I think he cared about the money a little bit. But he didn't care. He just wanted to be a dick. He ruined their business doing that. How were they going to collect any of the money? Yeah. They didn't know who owed what because he burned it. A little bit after that, he had another altercation with some young men in the neighborhood. These young men were just playing practical jokes on him. They weren't even really being mean about it. It was more of like a, hey, you're kind of new to the neighborhood. This is how we're going to welcome you. What was that noise?
Fireworks.
Yeah, we're doing this on July 3rd.
Yeah.
It was funny you jumped.
And the cats came running back in.
Of course they did. Anyway, so they were just kind of trying to welcome to the neighborhood. They weren't trying to really, piss him off, but they must not have known about his temper because he did get pissed off. So he picked up this rock. They said that it was a rock that they used to crush nuts with.
Something large you can hold in your hand then.
Well, he whipped it at one of the boys and it hit him straight in the head and knocked him out cold. Like knocked him out so bad that his friends thought he was dead. So he was charged for assault and battery and he was sentenced to several days in jail with a diet of bread and water. So in 1843, he gets married. He marries Sarah Lamson in Richland. Sarah's dad hated Ward, was totally against the marriage, and they didn't care. They got married anyway. So a couple of weeks after the wedding, Dad willed his property to his children to split amongst themselves, but left Sarah out of it. The only thing that Sarah got, she got $200 that she was not allowed to touch for 10 years. Ward tried to dispute this, but lost.
And
you know he did that because he didn't like Ward.
Oh, probably. So $200, then
Yeah.
7,390, give or take.
That's a lot of money to know that you have but can't touch for 10 years. And Ward, you will find out, is a greedy bastard. And he wanted that money.
Oh,
You don't
yeah.
know this at the time, but yeah, he wanted that money. But yeah, her dad left her out of the will because she married Ward. He hated Ward. He had a reputation by this point. Sometime during that whole thing was happening, he got into some legal trouble with another coworker over a house being burnt down. This all started because Ward, he was a tailor, he made a coat, but he couldn't sell the coat outright. He had to sell it through like a third party, like a consignment shop.
Okay.
I'm thinking that's what it was. So he teamed up with a man named Bowles to sell this coat through Bowles. The customer, Morse, wanted to buy the coat, but Ward didn't like the way that Bowles did business. And I'm pretty sure it had something to do with the commission that Bowles was going to make off this coat. Because with Ward, it just seems like it's all about money. So Ward tells Morse, he goes, you know what? If you just go beat the shit out of this guy, I'll give you the coat. Morse is like, I'm not going to do that, psycho. So Morse goes and tells Bowles. So Bowles was able to get Ward arrested and put in jail just for a short period of time, just to let him cool down as a way to keep the peace. Don't you wish that we could do that now?
Yeah, a little bit. He's a dick.
The law worked very weird back then. So obviously he didn't stay in jail long. And when he got out of jail is when Bowles' house mysteriously just burns to the ground. There's no proof that Ward did it. I mean, it's pictures or it didn't happen. There were no forensics. Nobody saw him do it, so they couldn't prove that he did it. But everybody knew that he did do it.
Yeah, he did it.
So he was charged, but he was acquitted because they couldn't prove it. But his reputation never recovered after that. So he ends up owning this tavern in Richland called the Eagle Tavern. And owning this tavern, he managed to maintain a fair reputation and earn an honest livelihood. But he said that customer service, quote, smothered what little of humanity remained.
Well,
same.
Anyone in customer service. Yeah, absolutely. Any more? Shut up, Karen.
But you know, it never even dawned on me when I was in customer service that murder was an option. I'm kidding. Maybe.
You should really come with a warning label before you say shit like that.
I think everyone who listens to us has dark humor like us, so I don't think it's going to matter. So there was a friend that he had, Noah Hall, who owned a general store near the tavern. I'm saying that they were friends because it just seems to me like they were friends. Noah Hall would come to the tavern so often, and they would sit and have dinner together, and they would talk all night. And sometimes Noah Hall would be either too drunk to go back to his place or too tired. And back then, a lot of people lived in the same place they ran business. They always had like a bed in the back or something. It was just, I assume it was just easier that way.
Probably a number of reasons, but so they were buddies in a sense.
It seems like it. Yeah, it said that Noah Hall knew the tavern so well that if Ward needed help running it some nights, he could do that.
That's nice of him.
Yeah. I would think that they were buddies. So one night, Ward and Noah are talking after dinner. And Noah mentions that he has to go to New York to buy spring inventory for his general store. So Ward gets to thinking, mind you, they've been friends for about a year and a half. Ward gets to thinking he's gone out of town to go shopping in New York. He's probably got a lot of money on him right now. I should kill him. Ward says, of the crime of murdering Noah Hall, I alone am guilty. Knowing that he was about to start to New York to purchase goods and that he had a considerable sum of money on his person, I laid my plans without any communication with others and resolved to take Hall's life as the only means of possessing myself of the coveted treasure. You didn't kill your friend.
Over a coveted treasure?
I mean, if you guys were friends, could you just maybe ask him if you could borrow some money? He might have given it to you.
That'd be the better option.
Couldn't you have just maybe somehow stolen the money if you didn't want to ask? You had to kill him too?
That was easier.
There were other options. So he explains that when Hall was out somewhere, he went to Hall's shop and opened the back door. And what he did was he unlatched the latch to where the back door still looked like it was closed, but to where it was open enough so when he went back later on that night, he could easily get in that back door without making any noise. So he went back to his shop after that. And then later on, when Hall was sleeping, Ward went back. He goes through that back door carrying an iron poker with him. And this iron poker was like big and bulky and square on one end. And then it like tapered off to almost a point on the other end. I'm picturing it like a poker that you stoke a fire with.
Yeah.
Probably.
Probably.
So he goes into the room where Hall is sleeping. While he slept in his bed, Ward stabbed him on the left side of his skull, just above his ear. Then, with the heavier end, violently hit him on top of the skull. He struggled, so Ward put a pillow over his face and strangled him to death.
That's personal.
Yeah, but they were friends. He said, "It was a fearful struggle, and I felt a sad relief when it was over. There was no great flow of blood from the wounds and no stains on my clothes."
Bullshit.
Yeah, you think?
No blood. Bullshit.
You're going to stab somebody in the head. It's a head wound. When you pull it out, it's going to bleed, if not squirt out. And then you bash him over the head with the heavy end. And then you struggle with him because that woke him up. He started struggling. That's why he put a pillow over his face and strangled him to death.
His heart rate is going faster, therefore more blood. If you ever watch Dexter...
Exactly. I don't know why he would have lied about that, though. It was almost like he was proud of it, like it was easy and it didn't even make a mess. No big deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand that.
It doesn't make sense, though. I think maybe we know way too much about blood splatter.
Batter.
I don't know. Spatter. I knew that. I don't know why I said splatter.
I don't know. The only thing that I can...
No, it just doesn't make sense.
The only thing that I can think of is when he was telling of his crimes. Maybe it was trying to look like he was doing a good job, that he knew what he was doing. I have no idea. I don't want to know what he was thinking when he was telling that story.
I know. Getting into a serial killer's head is not, it's not
No,
fun.
it's really not.
Weird. I don't like it. Back to the story. After all that, he dragged the body back to the back of the store and started looking for his money, his pocketbook. And he couldn't find it at first. And he has the nerve to say, "I began to think that my crime was to be without any reward." A reward.
That's not a reward. You don't kill your friend. It's hard making friends.
We don't have very many friends. Dude, not a lot of people liked you. This guy was willing to be your friend. What are you doing? So he ends up discovering his pocketbook in the bed under a blanket where he was sleeping and found $800 in there. $800 today would be give or take $30,000.
That's
So
a lot
he
of
was
money.
sick for a while. He immediately left this. Yeah. He immediately left the store after that and buried that pocketbook in his backyard. And he left that pocketbook buried for 6 whole months. If you needed money that bad, are you just going to let it sit for 6 months and not spend it?
Well, you can't do anything too extravagant. Buy bread with it. Buy feed. Small things here and there.
Use it sparingly. But, well, the reason why he left it buried for 6 months is because he knew that the murder was going to be a big thing and he wanted the commotion to kind of die down first before he started using it. But he was desperate for money. When he first started running the tavern, he barely had any inventory. He was very poor, barely even had any furniture. He didn't start earning money to keep the business going until he started getting permanent boarders. This tavern was not only a tavern where you can go and drink, you can get breakfast, lunch, and dinner there. You can rent a room for the night. So when he started getting permanent boarders, that's when he started making his money. And that had started happening when he killed Noah. He must not have needed the money that bad.
Probably not.
Going back to the night of the murder, though, when he left the store as to make it look like the crime had been done by regular robbers, he locked the back door and then he went out through the front door. So the place was all locked up. There were no windows broken. There should have been a window broken with glass on the inside of the building showing that someone broke the glass from the outside and crawled in through the window and killed Noah.
Well, with how creative he is with his
So-
crimes, it sounds like he would have been a person who would have broken the window from the inside. Glass on the outside. He's special.
So the next day, a customer came into the tavern and they're like, look, I tried to go to the general store. They're supposed to be open by now. And I'm banging on the door and nobody's answering. And they're like asking Ward, do you know where Hall is? Ward goes, no, I have no idea where he could be, but I'll help you look. So he goes over to the general store with this customer and they're banging on the door for a while. And of course, Noah's not answering. And Ward makes a joke and says, perhaps the old devil is dead.
Because you killed him.
Ward decides, you know what? I'm going to open a window because, of course, he knew that the window wasn't locked, probably. I'm going to open this window and I'm going to crawl in. That wouldn't have seemed weird because they were buddies. They were always at each other's places. Ward's worried about his friend. So if they saw him crawling through the window, they'd be like, oh, he's worried about his friend. He wants to see what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
He's concerned. So they crawl in through the window and they're looking around for a while. Ward pretending to look around for him. And takes him a little while, but Ward finally goes to where he had left him and screams, by God, here he lies on his back on the floor. I guess he is dead. And no mistake.
And no blood.
Apparently. So they called for authorities to help. And they decided to take the body over to the tavern. The coroner couldn't get there until a couple of days. They must have been somewhere far away doing something else, couldn't get there right away. So they decided to bury him in the backyard for a while, for a couple of days until the coroner could show up. Talk about contaminating the crime scene. They moved the body and then they buried it.
Well, if they're...
Screwed up the autopsy.
When was this? Early spring?
Yeah, I'm thinking the reason why they buried him in the ground is because the ground was still pretty cold because he was going to go shopping for spring inventory. And this was in Ohio, so it was probably still pretty cold then. So maybe to keep the body
Yeah,
fresh.
that's what I'm guessing.
Keep it from stinking.
Well, I mean, they didn't know anything about forensics. At that time, it was picture didn't happen.
Yeah, so they probably didn't even see a problem with moving the body either.
No, they were thinking about the autopsy. They were thinking about keeping the body fresh. But yeah, burying it, yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
I guess so. I mean, it wouldn't make sense
No.
now, but I can see how it would kind of make sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when the coroner finally did come, they checked him out, and I mean, it was obviously murder. He had a stab wound in his head. The top of his skull was all bashed in. They couldn't make it look like anything else. So there were two boys in town named Myers and McGavie, and they kind of had kind of a hood rat reputation. Like if some shenanigans were going on around town, it was probably these two.
Okay.
So Ward right away pointed the finger at them. They did it. They killed my friend. And they were arrested and charged, but they ended up being acquitted and found innocent. Ward would not let it go. He kept pressing the issue. You need to rearrest them. You need to look more into this. He risked himself being caught by doing that. You know what I mean? Like, why would you push it? Just let it go.
But if it's your buddy and you're trying to look normal,
You're going to press the
Yeah.
issue because it's going to make you look more innocent.
I'm
I get
trying
that.
to think about this in a way that, like Big Bang Theory, the way that someone would try to explain to Sheldon Cooper how to have feelings or emotions or what the right response is. Yeah, I don't want to get in his head.
Oh, I had to. So those two boys were never found guilty. Everyone just kind of forgot about it. A little after the murder, everything just kind of quieted down and went back to normal. But Ward himself became more irritable, greedier for money, and, quote, wretched to be around. Now remember Sarah, his wife?
Yeah. Did she ever get the money? Has it been 10 years?
No, this happened right away. Nowhere near 10 years. So Sarah was a pretty smart woman, and she knew Ward. She knew her husband, and she suspected from the beginning that Ward was the one who killed Noah. And so the thought of it kind of haunted her. Like, I think I'm married to a murderer. So she was trying to find out the truth and kept asking him and asking him and asking him. In certain ways, sometimes where like it was kind of a trick question to try and catch him in a lie, you know, try to get him to tell on himself. And it never worked.
He remained innocent at all times. Okay.
Oh, yeah. He denied the whole thing. She just got more and more In her efforts to find the truth, she became deranged. Quote, deranged. So, can you guess what Ward did to help her out?
What did he do? Kill her?
He sent her to State Lunatic Asylum at Columbus.
A motherfucker. Okay, so we just recorded Insane Asylum's episode. So remembering going back to that episode, we don't know when this is going to actually be released in what order, but yeah, I screwed up my head a little bit researching that episode. And when your wife no longer does what she's told or asks questions, it was legal rights to be able to send her to an insane asylum.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. And I have some theories about this, and I have some anger issues about this. First of all, he could have killed her. I think the reason why he sent her away wasn't because she was deranged. I do think that she did kind of drive herself crazy. And I do think that she needed help. But the reason why he put her in the asylum was to keep her mouth shut. Because she was running all over town talking to people about this and trying to figure it out.
But he did that
drawing
to
attention
her.
to him. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. She was right. Can you imagine what he must have been saying to her? Can you imagine the kind of gaslighting he did to her?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is exactly, I can just imagine him being like, I can't believe that you would think I'm capable of something like that. And you're acting crazy. And he probably said some really nasty shit to her and messed her up. The thing is, he did that to her and she was right. She was right the whole time. That pisses me off so bad. But at the same time, first of all, he sent her to an asylum. We know what happened in asylums back then, and that is awful.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to discuss everything.
Just listen to the Insane Asylums episode.
Exactly. But his other option was to kill her to shut her up. Which one of those would have been better?
I don't know. What happened to her?
What happened to her is when Ward dropped her off at the asylum, she basically just didn't exist to him anymore. And he went on to commit other shenanigans. Way after that, several years after she was dropped off at the asylum, she ended up improving enough for her to be released. And they released her to the care of her brother. And she was pretty much fine after that. She just had some episodes every now and then.
Probably from the lobotomies.
Yeah, I don't have any information. Yeah. I don't have any information beyond that, but at least she kind of sort of.
She was in the care of her family. And she could.
Yeah. So it kind of sort of was okay for her after
she
that.
had a chance to live a normal life, as normal as you could be afterwards.
Yeah.
Worse things could have happened.
And think about how young she was too when all of this happened. She was barely 30, probably. Very, very sad. So when we laughed about that, I was laughing at her reaction. I was not laughing about what Ward did because fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
When she was in the asylum and everything that we know was probably done, did she even have a concept of time when she got out? Because I would think that she would be like, please do not send me back to my husband. Not knowing that it was several years later and her husband was long gone.
At that time,
that would have been terrifying.
Yeah, if the husband admits the wife into the care of a facility, then it's usually the husband who brings the wife back out. Like, they're the only ones other than another family member who could get the person out, retrieve them, have them discharged, whatever words you want to use for that.
I'm thinking what happened was either enough time had passed to where they didn't even bother looking for Ward, or when they tried to look for him, he couldn't be found. And so they went and seeked out her brother instead.
Probably.
But going back to right after he dropped her off at the asylum, he ended up giving up ownership of the tavern for a while, and I don't know why, but that didn't last very long at all. And he gained back ownership, but with a partner, Griffith.
Poor guy.
He didn't do anything to Griffith. They didn't get along and they were not partners for long, but it wasn't with Griffith that he had this altercation. This is when we come to the second murder. Now, this quote, I am going to try to read it without screwing it up, and I'm going to try to translate it as best I can. It says, one crime as naturally leads to another as one stream mingles with another when there is no angel principles to guard the conduct and it is governed only by the restraints of society. One success in baffling detection invites to new and bolder trials, and wickedness finds no pause but grows by what it feeds on.
What?
Yeah, this is the way they talked back then. Basically, my interpretation of it is if you're committing crimes and always getting away with it and nobody knows what you're doing but yourself, it is very, very easy to justify what you're doing. It's very, very easy to justify it in your own mind. And as you're getting away with things, oh, I got away with this. What more can I do? And so every crime you commit gets bigger and bigger. And eventually you start telling yourself, this is so easy. I'm not going to get caught. And so you end up getting bolder with it too, like just doing it in broad daylight.
Okay, I get it.
And being more careless with it.
He's a dick.
Yes, he is. And there's another quote that says, "It is an appalling thought that such a monster should have so long moved about freely in society and have been taken by the hand and countenances as human."
Okay, translate that one.
Basically, this guy was walking amongst everybody and everyone was just, thinking that he was this normal, nice-ish guy. And he was barely human. He was a monster. To think this monster was walking among us this whole time.
And he's saying this about himself.
No, this is a quote from the book that was written about him. So at this point, he has no wife to answer to. He's got no kids to take care of. He doesn't have anyone to answer to but himself. And his circumstances were very easy. And he's got all this money too now from Noah.
About $30,000.
Yeah. So his partner Griffith was out for a week or so on business. So he's running the tavern by himself. One night, a peddler named Lovejoy arrived on foot with 2 tin boxes, one under each arm. And he tells Ward, look, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have any money really, but I need dinner and I need a bed to sleep in. I can trade you, but I can't pay you. And Ward's like, okay, well, let me look through your boxes and see what you got. So he looked through his boxes and he's like, okay, yeah, you have some stuff in here that I could use. That's a deal. We'll do that. So they ended up having dinner together. And then after dinner, they sat around and talked for a while. And it was a friendly conversation. And Lovejoy started complaining that he was really, really tired. He had a long journey that day. He needed to get some sleep. So Ward helped him with his boxes and took him to his room. And that was it. And Ward says, at this point, no idea of doing him injury had crossed my mind. And after leaving him, I went to bed wholly innocent of any intentions of disturbing his rest or doing violence to his property. But then Ward said, after having slept a couple of hours, I awoke about midnight, and the thought struck me that perhaps the peddler might have some money with him, and that there was a good opportunity to get possession of it. So Ward sprang out of bed, knowing the peddler's door wasn't going to be locked and that he could open it without making any noise. So he opened the door and entered the room, finding the peddler, as expected, sound asleep. He says the room was almost as light as day, as the moon was shining, and there were no curtains on the windows. I knew that he was very tired and calculated that a slight noise would not disturb him. Everything was so favorable that the temptation seemed irresistible, and leaving the door open, I went down into the bar and got an old axe that I knew was kept there, and returned up the stairs with the axe in my hand to the peddler's room. I found him still sound asleep and laying in a favorable position, so I took hold of the axe with both hands and dealt him a tremendous blow on the top of his head. I struck him only once. He scarcely struggled, and in a few minutes was dead. The blow being on the head caused little flow of blood, which was mostly at the nose and mouth, and by a little care on my part, the bed was scarcely stained. He made no noise whatsoever, and all that I had to do was dispose of the body. Again,
No blood.
He barely bled. All right, let's Dexter Morgan this shit.
Okay, so he would have had to get the axe out, and again, blood spatter. Stream of blood spatter.
Yeah. If there is an axe in your skull, if it's kept in your skull, yeah, it's going to keep you from bleeding, right? They tell you that if you get stabbed or impaled by something, do not pull it out because you're going to bleed out, right? He pulled the axe out. I know he did that because of the next thing I'm going to tell you. It's
probably going to be in both hands, upward motion, so then it's going to come out on him as well.
It's going to spray out. It's going to be on the walls. I mean, that axe is in bone. It's not like it's not like it went in like butter. He's going to have to yank it out. What?
in like butter.
Oh my God. We
No,
shouldn't be
we
laughing
shouldn't.
about this. It's terrible. Moving on. I know that he took the axe out because of the next thing that he did. I know he used the axe for this. Ward hadn't thought ahead enough about how to get rid of the body, but he soon figured it out. He went back downstairs and grabbed a dry goods box, and this thing had a lid on it, but the body was not going to fit in the box whole. So he dismembered him. He said, I unjointed the legs at the thighs and the knees, and after wrapping the various parts that were bloody in the sheets and blankets so as to prevent the blood from oozing out, I packed it all safely into the box.
Who says unjointed?
He does. Ward put the lid on the box and took it back to his own room, where it stayed all night, all the next day, and all the next night. Keep that in mind. He went back to the peddler's room and started rifling through his things to see what else he could get. He said, I only found about $50, which would have been about $2,000 today. And then he took whatever he thought was valuable out of the tin boxes and just left the rest. Then he said, I went to bed very little deranged in the consequence of the dreadful scene which had just taken place.
So he didn't care.
He had no
he didn't
remorse.
care.
No, he didn't care at all. He slept like a baby next to a box with a dismembered body in it 2 nights in a row.
Okay, I don't want to understand, but okay.
So the next day at breakfast, people were asking where Lovejoy was. And Ward's like, well, he decided to skip breakfast because he has a long journey. So he left a little while
And that
ago.
was normal.
And being a peddler, just passing through the town, nobody knew him. They had only known him for a couple of hours. And so they were like,
Yeah.
okay.
That was completely normal.
You know? Yeah. So Ward let people know also that he was in need of some money, which was a lie. And then he was going to Milan to get some from his father the following morning. He got up early enough so that nobody would see him packing a box with a body in it into his carriage and the tin boxes. He headed towards his father's house in Milan, and that was an all-day journey. About 10 p.m., he arrived at Huron River and turned down a secluded lot to the river, having weighed it down with irons. What types of irons? I don't know. Just things made of iron. It didn't specify anything to weigh the box down. He tumbled the box into the river and quickly made his way back home. He said, I never heard that the box was found.
Okay.
Ward said, I should say, on the night in which I killed the peddler, there were but few persons about my house and no one in the part where he slept. The blow sunk into his head with no reverberation of sound, and as I had taken the precaution to shut the door, it could scarcely have been heard in the room next door. I indeed was myself surprised that a life could be taken with so little disturbance.
So now he's enjoying it.
That was disturbing to read. When I read just that one sentence, I was like, oh, this guy's a
He's
monster.
starting to enjoy it now.
I think he kind of enjoyed it the whole time, but he also was doing it for the money up till this point. So after all of this, he moved to Shelby and went back to being a tailor. He just left. In 1853, he married Susan Reese, and a year later, they moved to Sylvania. During this marriage, he seemed to be pretty happy. He was content. All of his shenanigans stopped for a while. He just didn't feel like he needed to commit any crimes. He was genuinely happy, it seemed. And they had a child during their marriage. Their daughter only lived to be 2 months old, which is really sad.
Yeah.
And then Susan got sick.
So he's finally happy.
He's finally happy. He has a child. The child tragically dies at 2 months old. And then his wife gets sick. And she herself ends up dying in 1856 of typhoid fever. When she got sick, Ward had sent her back home to her father's house in Shelby. But there was suspicion after she had died that Ward killed her.
But if he was happy, well, maybe he became depressed and pissed off after his child died. I mean, how did he take the death?
I don't know. Okay, this is what he said. He said that he had a very great deal of respect for her and loved her sincerely, and that he visited her frequently while she was ill at her father's in Shelby, and that she died of bilious typhoid fever, and that the physician who attended her will not sanction any such suspicion, and that he has been to her father since her death and erected stones at the gravesite where her and her daughter are buried together.
So are we going to give him a little bit credit that he did not?
I don't want to, but I think we should.
There's no proof.
There's
Typhoid fever was... It was like the plague, but in a different time. Okay.
So yeah, there's no other information pointing to the fact that he did or did not. And yeah, I think we're just going to have to give him the benefit of the doubt there. But before that year even ended, Ward was married again.
That was normal.
I guess so. But this piece of shit got 3 people to marry him. His third wife was Olive Davis from Adrian. They married after only knowing each other 2 to 3 days, which I guess was normal back then. I don't know. She didn't know who she was marrying, obviously. In their marriage, they were very poor because at this point, Ward obviously had blown through all his money. Honestly, he probably blew through all of his money taking care of his second wife, Susan.
Probably.
They had a very volatile relationship. She brought 2 kids into the marriage, an 8-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl, and Ward hated them. He said that they were a constant source of annoyance, and the neighbors claimed that there were domestic scenes. I don't know what domestic scenes are. I don't want to say that he laid his hands on them. Maybe he was cruel to them, but we don't know. We don't know what he did. I know what I want to think that he did, but there's no documentation backing that up. So, domestic scenes. Eventually, Olive sent her kids away to protect them, pretty much. They went to live with relatives. And at the end of January 1857, Olive left to go to Adrian. She left him. Ward didn't want to let her leave at first. He got wind that she was leaving and he met her at the train station. And he's like, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm leaving you." He's like, "No, you're not going anywhere." She's like, "Yeah, no, I'm leaving you." He goes, "Well, you're leaving me without your shit then." Grabbed her trunk away from her, wouldn't let her take it. So she's like, "Whatever, screw you, I'm still leaving." So she left without her things. Ward later went up to Adrian to talk to her and try to get her to come back. And she refused. Ward said, "She told me that she didn't like me well enough to live with me anymore."
Accurate. I mean, fair.
I don't blame her. So Ward came back empty-handed without his wife. So he went to a mutual friend of his. She was friends with a lot of the neighbors. The neighbors knew that they had such a bad relationship. And like I said, nobody really liked Ward very much. Everyone really liked Olive. They were her friends. And I think they just kind of tolerated Ward, but knew that he was a dick. He went to a mutual friend and he begged. He's like, "Will you please go to Adrian and talk to Olive for me, see if you can convince her to come home." So their friend went up and talked to her. And she decided, "Okay, I'll come back. Tell Ward that if he sends me the money to travel back home, I'll come back home," which was like $12. I don't know what that would be in today's money.
I can look it up. Roughly $450, give or take.
Okay. So Ward happily sent the money to her to get her to come back. She comes back, and what I'm thinking probably happened was that the neighbors realized that she was back, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" You know, because they knew what the relationship was like. So they're like, "Why did you left him? Why are you back?" And I think she confided in these neighbors that she was only back temporarily. She was only back to get her shit and take off again. It's the only reason she came back.
Smart woman.
So people gossip, and Ward caught wind of this, and they fought about it. And there's a quote that says that when he heard of her plan, all the devil within him was aroused. And according to his subsequent confession, he at once resolved that she would never leave his house alive.
All the devil within him was aroused. Not a good enough reason to use the word aroused. Like, something there isn't right.
I knew you were going to say that. February 3rd, after coming back to Sylvania, she stepped over to one of the neighbors to borrow some eggs to make custard. This was around 6 p.m. after dark, and it was the last time Olive was ever seen. And I think there is where we're going to leave off, because this is where it starts getting real bad, and we're going to do this next episode.
Well, okay then.
So tune in next week
for part 2.
to hear the rest of the story. That's all I have for now. So we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.